Hello, my name is Niall Chute, and welcome to the LBS Alumni. Our topic today is going to be the A3 measure phase, and this is where we're going to be talking about data driven decision making. The function of this is to allow us to provide direction and create a situation where we can align the goals and the results. And what we also need is in this phase is we need to provide data so that we can create the A3 narrative that we need to produce. If we look at how the alignment between the A3 and the make relates to two aspects of the A3, the current condition and the target and goal. The former overlaps with the make phase of define, and it does that so we can provide clarity. That interaction that we get ensures that we are looking at the performance of the correct core process going forward. The measure phase has a couple of components associated with it. At its core, it's about data driven decision making, which in itself is at the core of the scientific method. It is in the measurement phase that we start to develop the correct data sets for our problem and select the best tools so that we can communicate what the problem is and the changing nature of it. To do this, we use the elements outlined. So we need to be able to take our problem or opportunity and we need to be able to talk and explain that with data. To do that, we effectively may have to go away and develop data collection plans for the process we're talking about. So, in the absence of data, in the absence of knowledge within the organization, we have to go away and get that data. And that would allow us to put together a measure performance system for the business process. That would allow us to put together a measure performance for the core business process at the heart of our problem. And then we need to balance that out as we look to implement. We need to make sure that we've got a balanced approach to our metrics and we're not creating lopsided improvement. So the measurement phase is about getting the data for data-driven decision making, which will govern what we do in our A3. When we look at our current condition, data is core to understanding the problem and avoiding pitfalls. And pitfalls we're talking about are things like cognitive bias, which skews how we think about the world and what we perceive as being true and not true. Also, we need the data to allow us to avoid the pitfall of not recognizing the threshold of knowledge. That's the point at which things turn gray, where we can no longer be sure or absolutely sure of what we know is actually true. So, to allow the define phase to fulfill its purpose, we need to provide data where define gives us the problem we need to be able to communicate visually based on data what that problem actually is. To do this, what we need to do is first understand what that problem is and start understanding what is the data that we need associated with it. And where the gap arrives in the data, we need to go and get that data. So we need to plan it, we need to plan time to do it, we need to plan people to do it, we need to plan what we're actually going to collect. In completing that step, what it allows us to consider and look at is we can start moving data into information and ultimately use it for communication. So we can start making the problem and what's happening very visible, very tangible, and we can actually start using data and tools to answer questions. If we consider then how we build upon that, we have this visual data, we can investigate the process and begin to identify the points of occurrence and points of failure that we have in our process and isolate the causes that contribute to the gap in our performance. So once we have those together, This allows us to create this measurement performance of our core business process. And that provides us with a performance measurement system that will underpin our A3 going forward. So if we have this system, it provides adhesion to our A3 as it unfolds. In the current condition, it will help us to break down the problem, identify points of occurrence and cause, so that we can more clinically decide where we're going to focus our efforts. In the target and goal, it helps us to find the direction for our A3 for the project that we are working on. In the analysis, it allows us to estimate the scale of the causes. So what causes are out there and what's the potential scale of them? And when it gets into the improve, it allows us to assess the potential of the countermeasures we've identified and potentially helps us to pick the best countermeasures. The other thing the measurement system does is in the outcome phase, it enables simple, valid comparison so that we can actually confirm relative to the goal what the team has achieved. If we think now about the target and goal, that's about defining direction. So in this section of DA3, we build commitment between the team and the sponsor, defining specifically the direction the team will take and what they're tasked or indeed contracted to achieve. It should be concise, and a function of this section is to allow validation of the outcome and results. So there's going to be three elements that we can associate with this part of our A3. The whole idea is that we use SMART goals or targets. So they're very specific in terms of what they're aiming at. And that may be down to a key metric. They have to be measurable. So we have to get data and we have to be able to use some of our tools to actually change that data into information and be able to communicate it consistently. So another element to this is that it's achievable. So the target that's actually agreed upon must be a target that both the team and the sponsor are happy with and are content to drive to try to achieve. The next element is relevant. It should be relevant to the core process we're talking about, the fundamental problems we're going to address, and indeed it should have a relevance also to the overall strategic alignment of the organization. And the last element of that is it should be time bound. It should set out for the team how much time they're actually going to be given to execute or complete their A3. And also in that, we can discuss and highlight how much time is required for the team to make the A3 a success. So the other element we talked about it being visuals. So we have to make sure that we have the data, we have to get the information, and we have to make sure we communicate or use the right tools to do this. And we need here to be cognizant of the fact that we need to actually replace text with visual tools and a visual method of understanding the problem. The last factor here is this whole idea of a balanced set of metrics. This speaks to the fact that we need to ensure that the customer experience is not disadvantaged by us focusing on one metric only. So if we're actually looking to reduce costs, to reduce time in a process, then we can't allow that to impact the quality or the on-time delivery commitments that we have to our customer. Those three elements together allow us to put together a target for the team to drive for. So in summary, the benefits that are associated with the measurement phase are we create a measurement performance system that allows us to define the plot so we can tell one story. In addition to that, it provides the mortar that allows us to connect the building blocks as we tell the story of our A3. And finally, the measurement system is the engine that transforms the questions we need to ask into the learning we require. At its fundamental basis, it's how we know what we have learned is true. Thank you for your time. That's the conclusion of my presentation. I wish you all the best on your lean journey and your use of A3 problem solving. Take care.